Christian Pulieri, founder of Math Legacy. Welcome. If you could start by just giving us a brief introduction on yourself.
Thank you so much, Alex. It's great to be here today. So, very quick. When I was very young, and I mean very young, when I was a kid, a 8-year-old kid, I used to play lots of video games. But video games for me were not just a way of engaging. So it was not just entertainment. They were more for me. They were a way in which I was learning, in which I was growing, and in which I was turning into the adult that I am now. And so I told myself that in the future, I would have been on the other side. I would have created video games that could have impact on millions of lives. So fast forward, at 13 years old, I decided to launch a YouTube channel because I am from the south of Italy in a small town and I couldn't pay for my studies otherwise. But I thought in my mind that I could have found success with YouTube and made money with YouTube so that I could pay for my studies. This happened. But YouTube was, I reached about 300K subscribers on YouTube here in Italy. But YouTube was my first entrepreneurial journey. So I understood that I didn't want to be on the side of programming only, which was a dream at the beginning. I wanted to be a programmer at Ubisoft, something like that. But I wanted to be an entrepreneur in that sector, so in the gaming sector. Then I got my diploma. After the diploma, I didn't remember anything, even if I wanted to reach the maximum score at the diploma. And I did that, but I didn't remember anything, if not IT, which was my passion. And I told myself that something was not right. So I started to study, to search for the reasons of this. I discovered learning science. In the meantime, I was studying game design. And at a certain point in my mind was like, okay, the solution is creating a marriage between game design and learning science. This was like 3 years ago. And then Math Legacy was born. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. It was random, really random, because I was 13 years old, okay? And so it was summer, it was very hot. And I remember that with a friend of mine, we started playing some video games together and record ourselves. And it didn't go on with my friend because he didn't want to. But I noticed that I used to have fun with this. And I started to notice that many others who were not 13 years old, but like 3 years, 4 years, 5 years older than me, were having a huge success. And legends said that they were making a lot of money. So I didn't know how to follow my dream, as I was saying, from an economic perspective. And because initially I wanted to go to the university and then a master in game development. But again, I didn't have the money. And so I told myself, okay, I'll reach 1K subscribers by 16 years old. So I was really, it was a challenge for me. I have been trained by video games in that. So even if the challenge is big, doesn't matter, you can do that. It's like an epic meaning behind everything that I have always been searching. So what happened is that I convinced myself that I could do that. And it was very difficult. Very difficult, because in the beginning, I used to make videos after videos after videos, and it didn't work. It really didn't work. I had another channel in the beginning that was a complete failure. I remember that on Facebook groups about YouTube, where I used to spam my videos, I wrote to people by spamming my videos and saying, please subscribe. That didn't work. I remember that those people started to work to created a thread, a public thread in the group, talking very bad about me. That was for a 13 years old, that's not a good thing. and then I told myself, okay, let's start again. Again, video after video, I then started to understand what didn't work. So I was starting to think like an entrepreneur, even if I didn't know that, because I was very young. So it was, okay, this video worked, why? This video didn't work, why? I needed, I think, more than 500 videos, considering the ones from the first channel, to get to the first $5. But then after that, I found some ways. I found some trends and things that I had fun to do. which were initially working in the US. And I was on YouTube one of the first 5 people, I think, to talk about curiosities and so on. So the top 10 thing that was really a thing in back in 2015, 2016, and was at the beginning in Italy. So I was one of the first ones. Even if I wasn't so good at talking in the beginning, the topics were good, and I was improving video after video. And so by 16 years old, I reached the 100K subscribers. And I always say that the first 10 were very, very, very difficult. The first 1,000 was way more difficult. And then after, it's like an entrepreneurship again. So it's, you publish a video, you learn from this video, and then you iterate until you get to the point in which something works. Sometimes it's a matter of you have to plant a lot of seeds, then one video randomly explodes, but then you have planted a lot. And so all of those seeds together exploded too. And this was what happened to me, basically.
And I find it interesting that you've done content creation, because I feel like a lot of problems that founders have nowadays is distribution. So how has being a content creator helped you with your current business?
So there is one problem. In 2020, I stopped doing content creation because there was, in 2019, there was one thing on YouTube, because I was focused on YouTube, which was the adpocalypse. Why this? Because mainly, so as an example, Nesquik was associated with terrorist videos. This was one of the things, because there were no filters in advertising on YouTube at the time. And so YouTube started working on the algorithm, but they were penalizing whatever thing. And so I was not monetizing as I was in the beginning. And also in the meantime, videos were not going well. So I started to have problems with that. I noticed that I was too focused on views and so on, and not on the dream, which was the reason why I was doing YouTube. And then I decided to take courage and say, okay, that was a chapter of my life. I understood that the idea I had for my life when I was 8 years old wasn't correct. And so I started making video games and focusing just on that thing. So the competence remains. In fact, now I want to start again to making content, but mainly for Math Legacy. But this is something that I have stopped again years ago, just because I wanted to focus on my why, which was the main reason, and which I lost also at that time. Very philosophical if you want to go deep. It can go very philosophical very quick, I can say, because okay, I'm hungry because I noticed that it was impossible that you had 50 years of game design, which is lots of science about how to create very engaging products, okay, very, very engaging products. And you have 300 years of learning science, which are not considered in schools, at least in my schools, in all of the schools that I have been. And this made me very, very angry, because I noticed that there were lots of people that were trying to solve problems in the education sector, but none was seeing that thing. So there was the gamification, okay, but you don't solve any problem, I think, with just badges and achievements and quizzes from my idea. There was the AI that was starting to, it wasn't a thing yet because ChatGPT was not exploded yet, but there were things. It was like 2022. But again, you don't solve any problem if you solve the homework for the students and they copy. The problem is still there. And so there was this like stomach ache that made me say, okay, let's go do that. Again, it's the challenge thing that video games were putting in my mind from the very beginning. And so was the direct consequence, because the company is called Educate, so Education Arcade, because the idea is to create something way, way bigger than Math Legacy. Math Legacy by itself is already big. If we solve this problem, as we want to do in the next 10 years, it's already something huge. But the idea is to do that with other topics too. So math is the perfect starting point, because as you perfectly know, it's a huge problem for millions of students around the world. So 2022, June 2022, I decided to start. And by doing market research, I decided to start with math. And then I fell in love with math. I am not a mathematician between the two co-founders. My co-founder is. I am the game designer. So that's the reason. And now I am starting to love and love and love math more and more as we go, as they pass.
And why are you falling in love with math?
Because it's at the root of the universe. What we always ignore at school, which is, it's the most important thing, okay? Because if we forget how to speak English, if we forget how to speak Italian or whatever other language, if everyone forgets everything, also math is the thing that will be written again in the same way. Because math is math, okay? It's 2 + 2 is 4, even if we all forget it. And it's fascinating because math is at the root of everything in life. And also when you go on with things start to get philosophical too, because it's way, way similar to philosophy. So again, I was angry about this thing because it's the problem with math. The main problem with math, I think, is related to the fact that it's abstract and it lacks a lot of feedback. And so students feel like they will never be able to understand it. But if you really solve those problems, it's so fun also. It's like video games, math itself. If you put the feedback part and you make it work, it's like video games if you think about it. So it's like, just what we wanted to do is like, I am exaggerating now, I'm really exaggerating, but Michelangelo used to say that the figure was already in the stone. It just was liberating the figure. Now I'm really, really exaggerating now. Okay, it's the statue, not the figure. But the idea is, let's solve the problems that we have with the abstractness of math and with lacking feedback. And let's make millions see what the beauty of math is.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you say that, because like math definitely does underpin reality and it's never going to change. It's very objective. But as you touched on, I think the problem is when you're at school as a child, like you don't see any applications of math. And then for me, when I've got older now, I've learned about maths for the financial markets, maths and data statistics for sports. And now I find it really interesting. But as a kid, I hated that. How do you think that can change?
Yeah, I think that can change because everything that you study in school has some implications that are related to something that students already do in their lives, or that they will do in the following years, or that they have seen, basically. So it's not just the algorithmic math that sometimes you learn at school, which is, okay, you have to do that. No, it's not. Yes, you should, because it helps you to solve problems, but it's everywhere. And if you don't see any direct correlation, it helps you to solve problems. I am now understanding how, perhaps starting with expressions, which is very, very simple. But an expression is a complex problem that, as any other complex problem, you have to divide in smaller problems so that you can get to the solution. And the thing that makes me angry again is that I wasn't seeing this thing when I was in middle school. I am seeing now that thing, now that I'm doing Math Legacy. So if you, through something like a video game that breaks all the barriers, make students understand that it's not just do that because you have to do that, but because you understand how to solve problems, you understand how things around you work, you understand how to do the perfect pancake, as an example. Things will change. It's not a simple challenge, but we can do that.
And how did you get your first customers?
Cold calling hell, I call it. Yeah. We called a lot of schools here in Italy. initially because we just wanted to go there and experiment and see if the UX that we were thinking, if the iterations of the product we were thinking of were working or not. So we started from the area I used to live in the province of Taranto, in the south of Italy. And we got in contact with some schools there, and then some decided to buy, even if the product was like 10% complete, which is very, very difficult when you're trying to sell to a school.
And I imagine that must have been very difficult cold calling schools, because cold calling any business is probably the best method of outreach, but it's still very difficult. But schools is even more difficult. Did you know this going into it, or was it a case of like entrepreneurial naivety, as a lot of people say?
Wait, I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was saying like it's very difficult selling to schools
Mm-hmm.
And selling education products. Did you know this before?
No, absolutely. No, because I have been a YouTuber before. Perhaps by being a YouTuber, I understood how to persuade, how to convince people because I used to sponsor products and I learned how to talk. I was very introvert when I was young. And so the only idea of getting in front of a camera and doing something like this would be hell for me. But YouTube helped me a lot. It wasn't like this, okay? It wasn't simple as nothing, starting to call schools because it's another thing. But after 10, 15 calls, I started having fun too because every school was very different. And sometimes there were some things that made me laugh. Perhaps the call didn't go good, but things made me laugh because the variety is so big, at least here in Italy. I have never done cold calling outside of Italy until now, that things made me laugh. I don't know. It was like fighting with the difficulty of that by laughing for whatever thing happened.
And how did you grow from there? So you've done some cold calling, you've got a few customers. How did you improve and grow?
So, the history of Mouth Legacy has not been so long until now. We have been around so in June will be 2 years as a company. So it's not a lot of time. And so the cold call experience was last year. This year instead we started to reach out to partners, so people who are already into schools, and started to do collaborations with newsletters. Other things that happened was that even if we were young, we won lots of prizes. Last year was the year of prizes. We won a prize from a radio. We became the best Italian EdTech in Italy from Jazz Awards. So we won the semifinals here in Italy. We won another prize for social impact. And so it leveraged a lot on the article side. So lots of newspapers talked about us. Even if in the meantime, I was telling myself the product is not ready yet. Wait, not now. But this happened. And so partners, distributors, conferences too, lots of conferences. We have been in the first conference in the US too in February, because now we are exploring the market. Not starting the go-to-market yet, but exploring that. And we are continuously experimenting things that will come now. We are more focused on the social media side, because it will help a lot, also on the brand awareness. And we are also testing a multi-channel strategy from email to LinkedIn to cold call. So initially, cold calling was the first step. Now we are trying to create a flow in which we have some emails, we see what happens from those emails, then LinkedIn, then if LinkedIn doesn't work, we go to the call. Lots of experimenting. We are in that stage now in which we have many hypotheses, and we are testing those to understand which one works and which one not yet, not really. So yeah.
And do you sell to schools all around the world or just locally?
At the moment, we have sold only to Italian schools, but now, as I was saying, we are exploring the US market. And with some partners over the next year, I think we'll be able also to go to other European markets.
And how is it being founded a business in Italy? Is it more difficult there or easier? Or
how much do you know about about Italy from this perspective?
Not a lot. That's
Good for you. Good for you.
I'm getting the sense from the giggling that it's very difficult.
It's not simple, I can say, from many perspectives. It has been so. There are many sides, okay, in a business. At this stage, I think that the most important thing is the team. It always is, but mainly at this step, we consider ourselves in a bridge between pre-seed and seed, also talking about funding as an example. And so the team is the best thing. And if I have to talk about finding the right team, I think that we were lucky. We were also good at that, but this has been very easy for us. And we have found extraordinary people, really, really extraordinary people. So if we are talking about the ecosystem from the perspective of finding people that want to create an impact, that want to sacrifice, perhaps, because you need to do that. Unfortunately, I think is not the right word, but okay, you need to do that anyway. So it's a good ecosystem for this, because there is a lot of talent which sometimes is not considered as that, but is there and just wants to flourish. There is a big fire that sometimes in lots of people that sometimes is not very created, which is another problem of the general ecosystem in Italy, of the general work ecosystem in Italy. I'm not talking about startups now. So there are great people, really great people. And I am very grateful to my team. I always say that because they are amazing. So they are the best. Talking instead for the funding side, that has been complex, but I have been talking with a lot of other people around the world who are on the same boat, considering the stage in which we are in. And so, yeah, Italy perhaps is not mature from the EdTech perspective, not a lot of funding about that. It's difficult. But we perfectly know that the pre-seed bridge between pre-seed and seed stage has been always hell for EdTech startups. So I understand it. So it's difficult, it's complex in Italy. And it's way more complex if you only see Italy. I'm not sure. So if in your plans you have, I'll be strong in Italy, I'm not very sure that you raise a lot of capital here. But yeah, so from a funding perspective, just to recap, is not very, very mature, I think. Not as mature, obviously, as the US, as an example. Same thing for the startup ecosystem too. While instead, from the sales perspective, it's not very, very mature. Things are starting to move. I'm talking about schools now. There is interest, big interest, but there are problems with funding because schools are very, very fragmented. So you have to go school to school. There are no districts here. So you don't sell directly to the district. You have to sell to every single school. And so it turns out that you have long sales cycles. Usually it depends if perhaps thanks to the stars, they have grants from the European Union and then they get money in that period. And you are lucky because you contacted them in that period. But this doesn't always happen, and you can't rely on that also. So very fragmented, you have to go school by school, and the sales cycle is very long for small amounts of money. So perhaps the sales cycle is 6 to 8 months, and you get 3,000, which is not something that has a big sense to focus on, I think, at least if it's the first market for you. And then even if you reach a decent part of the market, it's not so big. So it's Italy. It's 9,000 schools. If we talk about middle schools, it's not so many. So it's small from this perspective too. And that's also the reason why we have always thought global. We started with Italy because we needed to experiment, to test the product, but because we were there. And so it was no cost for us. But we have always thought of expanding internationally. So yeah, basically, to recap, because I usually go out the rails, and I'm sorry for that.
No, it's
but
good.
To recap, great people, lots of uncultivated fire, I can say. And if you want to create this, nice. Italy is a good place. From a funding perspective, way years behind other countries, and in particular the US. But EdTech is complex everywhere, so good luck to all of the other EdTech founders that are. I'm with you guys. You're not alone. The other thing is sales perspective. Italy is very difficult because it's fragmented. So unless you have a big sales strength, I can say, it's not it's not the best country to start with or to focus on if you are at the beginning.
And just going back to when you said about cold calling to start the business, like how were you doing that where you had a full-time job, or did you quit to go full-time? Like how were you able to just start the business?
So let me remember what's it. Yeah, I was a freelance. I have been a freelance until the 12th of April 2023. I remember the date because it was the date in which we had the first test of Math Legacy. And that changed my life forever because I saw the enthusiasm in students. And one student with eyes full of joy told me she just made me a compliment in the game because there is a compliment for every exercise that you complete. And she told me, no one has ever given me a compliment. And that was the time in which I decided, okay, doesn't matter. I'll go broke, but this is going to be full time. So until now, I was a freelance. Then after that, I continued to do some things as a freelance, and I continue to do that now. But now I just work Saturday morning. So that's I am lucky because I have a job as a freelance that makes me live without spending all of my time. But if I have to think of a full time, which is 40 plus hours per week of work, which usually turn out to be 60, 70, and so on in some periods, you know that it's from April 2023. I continue to do other things as a freelance, yes, but that was the time in which I said, okay, I already had a strong why. Now I won't stop.
And the problem you're trying to solve, bringing together learning and games, why do you think that's not been solved?
Great question. So, because I think that we have always focused on the wrong things in the past years in which we have tried to solve this problem. Because, as I was saying in the beginning, so there are big problems with math. First of all, math is abstract, as I was saying in the beginning, and it lacks feedback. So the fact that you get the first feedback when you get to the end of the exercise, and if it's wrong, you don't know why. This is a big problem because it generates frustration in the students and it demotivates them. So it makes them feel that they will never be able to learn the subject. And so it's abstract, first step. Then it lacks feedback, second. It generates frustration and it demotivates students. So they are very, very disengaged, third. And fourth, the worst one is they feel like they will never be able to learn math. And they avoid to do whatever thing in their future is related to math or STEM, which is the biggest problem. And why is not it is really because the solutions that have been launched until now usually go work on the engagement part on a superficial level. So talking about, for example, gamification solutions that, motivate students in some way or another, but limit usually the learning part to something which is superficial, like a quiz. Okay, personally, I don't think that multiple choice quiz with some gamification will solve the problem deeply. Okay, at the root. Or in other cases, you have had over time GPT-like solutions way before GPT that solved homework for you. But again, this perhaps gives you some feedback, but students are not really motivated to go there and understand where they were wrong. They just copy. Most of the times, I don't want to be, but they just copy usually all of the exercise and it's finished. So they have learned anything. So there have been lots of interesting things. I'm sure about that. Some of the current solutions work very well on some elements, but usually you go too deep into, as an example, the gamification part, but you get superficial to the math part, to the learning part, and you have the quiz-like solution. Or you go deeper into the math part, but again, you don't really guide students, you just solve everything for them. And they are not motivated to understand. Okay. What we're trying to do is instead different, because what we are trying to do is to go in a phrase very deep into both sides, very deep into the game part, but math is the game. So it's not a container of math quizzes with other mechanics that are not related to math, which sometimes happens, but it's math, okay, curriculum math. And in the same time, we guide the students. So it's not we solve it for them, it's we engage them, we help them to fall in love with the topic, with the subject, and we guide them step by step. And this, I think, will help us to get nearer the solution.
And how difficult is it to build a product like that? Because I know gaming's very fun. Like if you're playing Fortnite or I don't know, World of Warcraft is fun, but then you go into like the educational games. From what I remember as a child, the educational ones were always really boring. So how do you manage to compete with better games that will be grabbing kids' attention a lot easier?
That's very, very, very difficult, I can say. It takes a lot of time because for every single topic, so you have two solutions. You do the quizzes, but again, that's not the solution that you wanted to apply. Or you take every single topic and you transform it into a tailored level for that topic. But topics are a lot, are very complex. So there is lots of work to do. We have been working on this a lot. Our team is, as I was saying before, it's amazing because they have found solutions that were very, very difficult to find. And it still is difficult, but now we are in the situation in which we have created all of the pillars. And so things will get easier and easier. Initially, we started working on developing the product where it was like part-time or 10 hours per week in September 2022, just to give you a timing. And me and Fausto, my co-founder, iterated on this for more than 6 months until we found the best starting point, which is, okay, from this way forward, we start to build. And then for every single topic, it was, again, complex because we had to create many times particular mechanics for that topic. And in fact, we are not done yet. We are at about 60% of middle school topics, but the goal is to complete the entire K-12. And in the meantime, we needed to make choices. At the moment, if you download Math Legacy, it's not yet the strong video game that I was talking about, which is the video game of the vision. It's clear in the roadmap. We know what it will be. We know when it will be that. Or we crossed when. But now it's an educational tool, a strong educational tool with gamification now. In the vision, there is instead the video game. So it's complex. It's very, very complex, but it's also very fun because I always say that in middle school, I used to hate the 3 Gs, which are geometry, grammar, and geography. And now, thanks to Math Legacy, as a 24-year-old, I learned polygons for the first time. So it's very fun when you work on one topic for like 2 months, but then it works, okay? You really learn it. So difficult, very, very difficult, but also very, very fun.
Yeah, learning things when you're older can be a lot more fun. And so when you're learning, like, how do you like to learn things? Do you like books, podcasts, or courses, or games, or
all of those? It depends, really. Yeah, so now it's a period of course. It's like in periods, okay? Sometimes it's courses, other times it's audiobooks I listen to while walking. Other times is reading a book. It depends. It depends also by the topic that I am learning and the pacing of the course, the book, or the person that I want to listen to. As an example, if I have to learn sales and I am learning something from Daniel Pink, I'll go through all of the different ones that he did. For example, a course that he did on a platform, then the books and so on. So it depends basically about from where the information that I am searching for is and by how my mind wants in that period. Different periods want different things without any rule also. So it's weird.
And outside of math and math legacy, what's the thing that interests or scares you most?
Okay, interest or scares me most?
Big
So,
question.
it has to be two things or one, which is both.
Either of the two, yeah. Because some people say AI scares them, some people say AI interests them. So it depends how you phrase it.
Okay, talking about interest, obviously video games. It's not so obvious because from 13 years old to like 23, I have not played anything, or at least I played not so much and not as I wanted because I was working. It was like the hustle culture, you know. But then I understood that was wrong, and so now it's a sort of habit that I rebuilt, and that is helping me a lot because it helps me obviously also in having ideas, fresh ideas from a legacy, but it's also something that really interests me. And I am very interested to see what will happen because building video games is very difficult. And talking about AI, there are things that are going in a way that could really make teams, small teams, it agrees with me, small teams to do a better work faster. And so to focus mainly on the creativity side and not on the very complex things that sometimes you have to do. So talking about AI instead, it interested me, and I am constantly searching for ways of implementing this into the work, not because I have to or because it's the thing of the moment, but because I recognize that it can solve a lot of problems for me, or for example, for the teachers, for the students that we are working with. Math Legacy, parenthesis, is not based on it's not a wrapper of GPT or something like that. But we created our own algorithm that generates everything and validates the intermediate steps because GPT doesn't know how to do that now. So we are not against it. It just doesn't work at the moment as a language model too also. Yeah, so video games are very interesting for me now also because the passion popped up again. So I finally told, okay, come out. You can. Okay, just breathe. The AI in making video games, apps, web apps also interests me a lot because I think I am not one of those that think that AI will take your job now, at least until we have AGI. But I think that, and I see it as a developer too, it helps a lot. It helps a lot to do things faster, to do redundant things faster also, and it simplifies all of the project. It allows you to experiment more. Talking about instead what scares me, we live in times that are not, how can I say that? Nothing is clear about the future, really. Okay, nothing. And so, as a founder, I am very optimistic and positive about the future. But the future as a whole, talking about geopolitics, talking about climate change and so on, worries me. To be sincere, sometimes when I think of making children, and I think it's something common in my generation, I say, okay, but if things continue like that, when my children will be 10 years old, 15 years old, they will probably live in hell. So I don't want that thing. But in the meantime, as a founder, I am optimist and I am working so that instead of them living in hell, they will live in heaven, which is another possibility. And here comes the uncertainty that it's weird because it scares me, but it excites me too. Because in some things, I can do things for this uncertainty to become more certain. In other things, I don't have control. I am not the president of anything. So now, at least, yeah. Interest in video games and AI and the intersection between the two scares me, the uncertainty about things that I can't control. So I'm talking about now climate, geopolitics, and so on.
Either one of these, it can be your favorite quote, favorite book, best piece of advice, guiding principle. Do you have anything like this?
There is a bad word in it. Let me see how to phrase it. There is a book from Mark Mason, which is how to? I don't know. But if you search Mark Mason, is the one with the orange cover. And the
Yes.
concept, there's a bad word in it. I won't say it, even if I don't remember it.
The subtle art of not caring.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yes. The idea, the concept that really resonated with me is about the fact that whatever you decide to do, you will be full of problems. So whatever, okay, I am doing something that I love, but there are many problems. But the same thing would be if I was doing something that was really bad for me. I would have lots of problems. So just choose the problems that you like the most. He in the book uses another kind of metaphor that I won't use it. I won't use here, which is way stronger. But yeah, the idea is again this: whatever you do, that you will have problems. So if you understand this before it's better you will ever have.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like leveling your expectations, because I think that's why so many people kill businesses off and then they change to another industry. They think, oh, this industry's saturated, this is too difficult. Whereas everything's difficult, right? Like, even if you're a movie star or an athlete or you're a taxi driver, they're all hard, but they've got the different challenges, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, problems and everything. I agree with that. That's a really good point. I think it's something always worth remembering before you start anything, that no matter what, it's going to be hard. But yeah, Christian, thanks ever so much for
Thank you,
joining.
Alex.
Really appreciate it. Amazing to hear about what you've done and continue to do with Mass Legacy. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was great.